Hey guys, Fantastic Mr. S here again, and you're watching Dangerously Rockin' Reviews! Whew, it's been quite a year for me. I think I got more reviews done than I did last year. I just wish I'd been able to do more albums at the time. So, to end the year off right, here's my list of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. Number 10! Rain and Blood, Slayer. A couple of years ago, I came across some article that said that this was one of the many albums I should own before I died. And sure enough, I asked for it that Hanukkah and I got it. And I gotta say, it did not disappoint. It's got everything you want from Slayer. Fast-paced tracks, sinister vocals, wild aggressive drumming, and just an all-out war of brutality. And while most of the songs don't really stand out all that much, Rain and Blood makes up for that in two ways. First of all, by having the best tracks Slayer's ever made, which are Angel of Death and Raining Blood as its beginning and end songs, and second, by just being incredibly fast-paced and fun to listen to. To put it simply, Rain and Blood showcases Slayer at their absolute best, bar none. Number 9! Back in Black, AC/DC. This was the album that changed the course of the Australian rock giants' career, and for the better. For starters, getting Brian Johnson on board to succeed the late Bon Scott was one of the best decisions they've ever made. The amount of energy he brings to the band and the songs totally blows Scott's abilities out of the water. But also, the songs on here kick ass. And I still remember all the songs too, from Hell's Bells all the way to Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. With a lot of albums, I tend to forget some of the songs I listen to. But not Back in Black. Sure, they've all got that similar AC/DC formula, but they're still all unique enough to stand out too. And that's what makes this album re-listenable, the uniqueness of the songs. Which is more than I can say about most of their other efforts. Back in Black may have been the start of something monumental for AC/DC, but nothing could define them better. Number 8! Rust in Peace, Megadeth. Being the first album of theirs to have Marty Friedman on guitar and Nick Menza on drums, I'd say this is Megadeth's magnum opus. I mean, sure, Peace Sells But Who's Buying gave them a strong foundation, but with Rust in Peace, they were able to expand upon their sound. It retained all the thrash metal goodness of their previous material, but it also created new worlds for your mind to journey through. And to me, that is what a metal album should do. And I think having a guitar extraordinaire like Marty Friedman was a huge benefit. He and Dave Mustaine made a damn fine guitar pair. And nowhere is that better demonstrated than on the song Hangar 18. Now that is what I'm talking about. And if you're looking for a metal album that's fun, thrashy, and highly inventive at the same time, then Rust in Peace has got you covered. Number 7! Boston. Just Boston. I haven't really listened to the entire album per se at this point, but I have played all but one of its songs on Rock Band. The last one, Let Me Take You Home Tonight, wasn't playable. So I think I got more than just the gist of what it's all about. It was one of the best-selling albums of all time, and for good reason too. Almost every song on there is a classic. I mean, More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Rock and Roll Band, Foreplay Long Time, especially Foreplay Long Time. And it's not just the songs that are great. The production is out of this world, both literally and figuratively. I guess it only helps that guitarist and founder Tom Schultz had perfectionistic tendencies at the time it was recorded. And it's also worth pointing out that he literally invented Boston's spacey rock sound, having developed all that technological mumbo-jumbo that was used on it. So sit back, relax, and let Boston, the album and the band, how would you say it, Brad? Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Number 6!
Ride the Lightning, Metallica. While Rust in Peace wowed us with its crapload of creativity, it just couldn't compete with Ride the Lightning, the album that made Metallica what it is today. It was also the first album of theirs that I ever bought, and a great purchase too. It was heavy and fun, just like their material in between, but also had something that I felt was missing from those records: intimidation. I love when a metal album takes you on a journey, as I said earlier, but I think they're also supposed to make you feel intimidated at the same time. It's part of what metal is about, and Ride the Lightning nails that part with a sledgehammer. A great example of that would be For Whom the Bell Tolls, one of my favorite songs. But it also knows when to take a break from being loud and fast, like on Fade to Black, for example. And with that combination of creativity, heaviness, fun, and intimidation, Ride the Lightning proves why Metallica's music is the very definition of heavy metal.
Number 5!
A tie between Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, Ozzy Osbourne. Personally, I think the ones that had Randy Rhoads on guitar were Ozzy's best solo records. But he only lived to record those 2 albums, so it's pretty much impossible to decide between the 2. I mean, they had their differences, but were both equally strong in their own rights. And obviously, Rhoads' guitar work was their greatest strength. He gave the songs a neoclassical flavor while still keeping them metal. And the rest of the original band didn't just do a great job supporting him. Their playing style made the Ozzy Osbourne band sound all the more unique. Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman are both a far cry from Black Sabbath in terms of their tone, but they do have their darker moments too, like Mr. Crowley off of Blizzard of Oz, and let's not forget the titular track at the very end. I swear that song shows Randy Rhoads at his absolute best. Way to go out on a high note, Randy. But it's also Ozzy Osbourne at his best outside of Sabbath. Yeah, I forgot to mention, Ozzy's singing on both albums is awesome. Not Ronnie James Dio awesome, but still great on his own. And like I said, it's impossible to choose between the 2. But whether you listen to Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman, they were the collective start to Ozzy's legendary solo career.
Number 4!
Led Zeppelin II. Now, I was planning to do this next album with one of my friends from high school, but sadly nothing has ever come of those plans. But I am going to give this one a quick mention until we can get that review going. Led Zeppelin II is a goddamn masterpiece. It's got some fantastic production, courtesy of Jimmy Page, and all its songs are strong and memorable. Except for Thank You, of course. And on top of that, it showcases the band at their tightest and most creative. Granted, they did a great job on their other albums, but holy mother of God, their performances here just blow everything else away. Especially those of Robert Plant and John Bonham. Just listen to these examples back to back. Okay, that was good. That was good. Okay, that is how you make a goddamn Led Zeppelin song! Oh, and I forgot to mention it's got a drum solo song on here too. Okay, how does he do that with just one bass pedal? What more can I say about Led Zeppelin II other than sheer hard rock genius? Although that's nothing compared to the next album on this list. And that brings me to...
Number 3!
Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. It was said on an episode of Metal Evolution that Guns N' Roses was the band that killed glam metal. Well, if that's the case, then their debut record, Appetite for Destruction, that was the album that killed it. It basically helped the band redefine rock and roll as we know it. It was raw, it was energetic, and best of all, it was bursting with attitude! And like Boston, listening to this album was like listening to a greatest hits collection, because it featured most of Guns N' Roses' best material. You had Sweet Child of Mine, you had Paradise City, you had Mr. Brownstone, Night Train, and Welcome to the Jungle, which happens to be my second favorite song of all time.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. We got everything you want.
And let's not forget, this was the only album of theirs in which the original lineup played, which, besides Axl/Izzy and Duff, also included Steven Adler on drums, unless you count Lies in that one song on Use Your Illusion 2. And boy did that lineup kick ass! Will we ever get something as great as this from these guys again? I highly doubt it, at least from the original band. But for those of you wanting to relive the magic they brought, then do what I did and go pick up this album and see why it made hard rock awesome again.
Number 2!
The Wall, Pink Floyd. Now, I'm not going to talk about this one too much because I already did a review on it last year. But it's on the list, and very high on it, for good reason. It's fueled mostly by emotion. It not only talks about things like the pressures of being a rock star, but also talks about loneliness and abandonment and insanity. Things that I especially can relate to on a personal level. And it goes deep into them. The result? Why, you're left with a collection of songs that take you on an emotional path of enlightenment, while still being experimental like many of Pink Floyd's efforts past. I just wish more albums could do that. What's also fascinating about it is how you need to listen to the whole thing in order to understand the turmoil that the character is going through. Or at the very least, the lesser known songs like In the Flesh, Is There Anybody Out There, or even The Trial. Those are all favorites of mine. And truth be told, this is my go-to album whenever I'm feeling down. Because every time I listen to it, it feels like it's literally speaking to my emotions. Deep, emotional, and downright disturbing, I think The Wall ought to be in everyone's sad playlist.
And his number 1 favorite album is...
Paranoid, Black Sabbath. I bet you're asking yourself right now, wait a minute. If The Wall is the album that relates to you on a personal level, why is Paranoid number 1 on your list? Here's the thing with the two albums. While I've got a strong personal connection to The Wall, it feels like it relates to just one person in particular rather than to everyone. Plus, you have to be in the right mood in order to get the most out of it. With Paranoid, you could be happy or angry or even just neutral and you'll still get the best experience it can provide. And it does provide the best experience I've ever gotten from an album. Sure, it's not super heavy or fast-paced or over-the-top like most metal records are, but it's got all the vibes down that a heavy metal record should have. Evil, eeriness, anger, sorrow, and fear. And that's all coming from Tony Iommi's guitar sound, the lyrics, and of course, Ozzy's one-of-a-kind voice and delivery.
In the great magnetic field, when he traveled time for the future of mankind.
Now, the tone of the album isn't just negative for the sake of being negative. It's doing so to make a statement about what was going on in the world at the time. And you know what? Their portrayal of the world is pretty accurate. Horrible things were happening around them at the time, and they're still happening to this day. And that's why Paranoid is still as fresh and still as important as it was back in the 70s. Therefore, it is without a doubt my favorite album of all time. I'm the fantastic Mr. S, and be sure to look out next year for more Dynasty Rockin' reviews!